CEO of Folio, and I am super excited to introduce our guest, Ali Siddiqui. Ali is a senior product manager at Adobe, where he's focused on creating tools for educators. He studied biology, biostatistics, and Asian languages and literature, and began his career as a researcher and teacher in Chicago. He earned a master's in education before pivoting to instructional design, where he's created online learning experiences for organizations like the Gates Foundation, NASA, and Coursera. Ali's going to kick us off with a presentation about his career journey, and then we're going to do some Q&A. Ali, thank you so much for being here. The stage is all yours.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is exciting. And thanks for that intro. Very nice things. So yeah, like you mentioned, I think it would be great for me to just give a little brief journey slash origin story about kind of some of the things that I've done. And then I think from there, that'll give everyone like a good set of information to ask questions based off of. So if that sounds good to you, we can get into it.
Sounds great. Go for it.
Awesome. So yes, as Kathy mentioned, I am a product manager at Adobe, and my focus is on content. So it's really about making sure that we, the crew at Adobe, can produce content, position that content, and scale content that's really engaging for teachers and students. So things that they feel really passionate about using in the classroom, things that spark creativity, unlock learning opportunities, and things like that. So, as many of you may know, Adobe has like a lot of creative tools. I particularly focus on Adobe Express, which allows you to create infographics, posters, and things like that. A lot of things students would love to do. So that's what I do right now. But I think the question that many of you may be wondering is, okay, so how did I get here? So I think now would be a good time to do a little bit of a quick recap slash origin story on this career. So I was born and raised in Chicago, home of the deep dish, the Bears, and of course Oprah. And then I did my undergraduate degree at Loyola University, where at that time I was pre-med. So when you mentioned my undergraduate degree in biology, that tracks. And there's a whole interesting side story here about taking the MCAT, getting into some medical schools, but then having a plot twist where I then went on to teach high school chemistry through Teach for America. I taught high school chemistry and physics on the south side of Chicago, which, as I've written here, had all the drama of an episode of Breaking Bad, minus the substances and all of that. And so it was a really I would say, wild time, but also very formative. It taught me a lot. So that's me. There was a clip from like a news segment that they did on the school. I don't know why they chose to feature me, and clearly I was not prepared for that. So, I had a class, I had three classes, 90 students all together. It was a brand new school. So really a lot of that work as a high school chemistry teacher in a new school was basically building up from scratch. It was like deciding on a vision for what this curriculum could be. It was at a very rare kind of STEM school that students earned a college degree at the same time. So really, I think it just allowed me to be very creative, but also yeah, treat that like as a startup. It really was. Like there was no chemistry lab. You had to build everything from scratch. And so that was a really amazing experience. After I completed 2 years of teaching, I then got the opportunity to work on a grant for the Gates Foundation. And that was out in California. So I had this one gap year before I was supposed to start medical school. And I was like, you know what? What if I did something a little bit, crazy in this gap year and just like left Chicago for a bit and tried something different? And so that's when I moved out to SF and worked on this Bill and Melinda Gates grant, where their goal was how could we create next gen science courseware online for community college students who may not have such a strong academic background? And that was exactly what I was doing in my teaching role. And so it made a lot of sense. And that's kind of what entered me into this world of ed tech, where I was working at a design consultancy, and we were working on the Gates Foundation grant to make these like next gen courses. But at the same time, we were also working on a lot of projects for a whole bunch of other companies. Pearson, we were working with companies like the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, a lot of universities like Stanford, University of Chicago, and making custom learning experiences for them as well. So whereas I think my first, work experience with Teach for America taught me a lot of resolve, this one really taught me a lot of like flexible thinking, how to really understand the user's problem to create very bespoke and custom learning experiences. So that was definitely a lot of fun. And yeah, and I can even show you a little bit about like what these experiences looked like. So the special thing about this platform was that based off of what you know and how you perform, we take you down different learning pathways. And so a lot of the work that I was doing was figuring out, okay, how do I know if someone's struggling or not? And then based off of that, where do I take them? And how does that impact their learning and their outcomes? And how do we get that to drive usage of the product? So that was one of the cool things that we worked on. I also helped develop through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, I think the first fully case study based online chemistry course, which you can see here is called Critical Chemistry. The story behind this, I'll get into in the Q&A maybe, but it was definitely a wild ride to put this product together. I will say. I think we had 10% of the budget we needed to. We only had 3 designers, and one of them didn't even know chemistry. So it was very interesting. I think there was a lot of user research done on the grounds of the UC Berkeley campus, but story for another time. And then also, I got the amazing opportunity to work on simulations and developing these simulations with amazing partners like the folks at NASA and people who are aspiring astronauts. If you're wondering, how the heck did you get from there to here? This simulation, the goal was to teach students anatomy and physiology. And so doing that in an engaging sort of way. And back at this time, I was an instructional designer, and I had to come up with an engaging way to teach these topics. And I was like, what would be an amazing way of doing this is, what if people could learn about anatomy and physiology by making sure astronauts get from Earth to Mars and back with their health still intact? Because microgravity has this effect, and it decreases your bone density, it interferes with your cardiovascular system, it interferes with a whole bunch of other, bodily systems. So in order to figure out how to keep them healthy, they had to learn very basic principles of anatomy. And so, in order to execute on this vision, I worked with engineers from Romania, designer, like very amazing set of designers, and then also subject matter experts from NASA to actually make that health bar that you see in the simulation. So this was actually, I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but the reason why I'm emphasizing on this one so much is because this is what actually transitioned me from an instructional designer to really getting inspired to work on product. When you have such a creative vision, you don't just want to kind of limit yourself to doing one thing. It kind of, going through this experience kind of made me feel like I want to have a bigger sort of impact, and I also want to be able to create a strategy for a product that is more than just like the educational content that goes behind it. And so that was a very amazing experience that maybe we'll double click on later. And there was also other cool things like integrating other partner tools like FET into our courses and stuff like that. And then, we were very fortunate to win a number of awards for those courses that we made for the Gates Foundation. Plug to these partners who gave us these awards. Okay, great. And then after that, I worked at that design studio for a bit, and then worked at a nonprofit organization called Philanthropy University. Kathy may know a little bit about it, where our goal was to create courses and a learning platform for nonprofit leaders across the globe to help them scale their organizations, get larger, do more. And that was a really fun experience. I got to create some courses for the platform, an action planner kind of tool to help people respond to like emergency situations or plan out their next steps as a nonprofit based off of what they're learning. And then also helped influence the skill badging system that we had to kind of help keep the platform a little bit more sticky. So these were some of the things that I got to play around with during my time at Philanthropy University. And then after that, I joined Coursera, where I was leading their short form content. I was managing that team that was developing all their short form content and figuring out a way to make it as high quality as possible and then as engaging as possible. And so the one product that I worked a lot on was called Guided Projects, where you get a side-by-side learning experience where a video of an expert doing it is on the right, and then you get to actually do it in the very same platform on the left. We came up with a lot of ways to enhance this experience. And I think as of like last year, I think they even published a white paper on the work that we did and showing what learning outcomes it led to. So that was a lot of fun and super cool, very informative experience. And then, oh, and that's pretty much, um, yeah, that's pretty much like a snapshot of my journey before Adobe. It started off local, working in a classroom, and then with the Gates Foundation going national, and then with Philanthropy University, talking to nonprofit leader user base across the globe. I went into the more global realm. So during all that time, whether local, national, or global, as kind of someone who's involved in product and working with product, you go through the whole shebang, all of the stuff, discovery, validation, build, launch. And it looks different in every scenario. And I can tell you that for sure. It was a different experience in all these scenarios, but super enjoyable nonetheless. And it led me to create a lot of projects that I feel really good about even till today. So it just gave me a lot to really look back on and a lot of things we can double click on. And then, of course, yes, a lot of fun stuff, but aside from work, I think it's important to have a life outside of work. And in that time, I've also happened to run a cheesecake business, started a nonprofit, did a lot of competitive storytelling. I love pottery, travel, calligraphy, and then I'm, always somehow the designated event planner of the friend group, which as a PM, I think that skill has to come to you. This would be second nature. But yeah, I think these are some things that I might touch on later on, but just want to give a holistic picture. But that is pretty much a wrap on my end. Some background, some interesting facts, but I wanted to give you a sense of this is the kind of work that I've done and kind of where my career started, where it kind of went, and where it is now.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for putting that together. I actually had not known as much about your potential career as a doctor as I have now. So that's awesome. Actually, do you want to? Maybe we can start there because a lot of the audience here is students that are in college or recent grads, and I think a lot of them are curious, like, what should I be studying? I'm spending a lot of money on an education. How did you decide that you wanted to be pre-med? And then can you talk more about how that might have changed after you graduated and got into med school?
Yeah. Okay. So this is interesting. So growing up, I really didn't know what I wanted to do necessarily, but then you end up in college, and then by the time you're in your second year, they're like, okay, well, time's up, time to choose something. And so you just like, like those people that like spin a globe and they just like point to it. I was just like, you know, there's so much influence around like the big three. It's like you're either a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. And so it's like, well, my globe is more like just spin between these three options. And I was like, okay, I guess I guess I'm gonna do medicine. So that's where I was like, okay, well then, because I'm gonna do that, I might as well study biology. I mean, I was always interested in science, and Yeah, I did that. I think that's kind of the route for many people who are in college. Just like it almost feels like the path of least resistance to kind of just like fit into this mold that you may feel like you need to. So that was kind of me. I was kind of like on cruise control for like most of the 4 years. And then by the time I got to my last year, I took the MCAT. And because I took it in my last year, I had a gap year. I took the MCAT, took a 5 hour energy before taking the MCAT, would not do again. It's relevant because I almost fainted in that MCAT. And then I was like, oh, I might not do so well on this, but I got a pretty decent score. And then while I was in, while I was teaching, I applied to medical schools. And then I remember I had to take some days off of like teaching and then, interview at these different schools in Chicago. And I got into a couple of schools. And then, yeah, I think when I got into a couple of schools, I told them I wanted to defer. So I wanted to defer for a year, and then I completed my um, Teach for America, and then I did a gap year where I was out in the Bay Area and working in tech. And I think during that time, I had realized that, oh, this might have just been like a cruise control moment where I was just like doing it and rolling around and letting inertia take over and like really getting next step to next step to next step. And so and then also working on something else, like with a lot of these cool projects that I was doing, I was like, there's something really exciting and interesting here that allows me to be a little bit more creative than just like study something, answer questions, study something, answer questions. So that creativity that is really what sparked my interest in like pursuing something that was more product centric. I did defer 2 more years after. And then after the third year, the schools were just like, okay, you let us know when you want to kind of do it. And I was like, okay, deal. And yeah, here I am. So that's a little snapshot of that. But I think that the takeaway is really ask yourself, like, are you in cruise control or are you kind of, you know, feeling like this is something you're really passionate about and then have your why. Like, why is it so meaningful to you? And I think asking those questions will kind of help you perhaps try to get to where you want to be faster. Yeah.
Mm. So speaking of your why, do you have like a pretty clear why for why you've been passionate about education since deciding to leave the medical field?
Yeah. For me, yeah. I mean, in the TLDR version is like my mission is and has always been to really push the boundaries of what's possible in education in order to make sure that everyone, no matter what their socioeconomic status is, gets a high quality educational experience. Personally, I grew up, in the city of Chicago. Didn't My local schools were not the best. And I remember my parents, like they really like worked multiple jobs in order to send me to a private school that was an hour away. And so I remember commuting back and forth, and our whole lives were kind of, all around trying to get a high quality education that our neighborhood could not provide us. So, from there, yeah, and since then it has opened up a lot of opportunities for me, and I just feel like, very much similar to the ethos of like what Teach for America talks about as well, is just that why can't everyone have that? I mean, why can't everyone have access to that opportunity? And so every job, really, if you look at that timeline that I've had, has always allowed people to, you know, increase their trajectory in life through higher quality educational experiences, whether it's the Gates Foundation, Philanthropy University, Coursera, um, and even now, like at Adobe, creating enriching experiences that are more equitable so that students can get access to it.
Awesome. So you shared a chart that showed sort of your impact in the educational space from being an individual teacher to then working sort of nationally, globally, and beyond. Was that an intentional decision? Like, could you imagine the impact that you wanted to have, and then like purposely decide to work for bigger companies, or do you think that was just sort of like just like what came along and the opportunities that arrived at your doorstep?
Yeah, no, I actually, um, Deliberately, I have gotten this question in interviews. Like like it's very common in interviews where the interview will be like, okay, so why are you like now applying to this role? And I can't remember if it was at Adobe or at Philanthropy University, but um, that has been a like my response to that, which is if you have a mission that is to increase the career trajectory or opportunities for people who do not have access to a high quality education or uh, you know then why not make that available to more people, right? So that idea of scaling, of thinking at a larger sort of level, definitely is the reason why I wanted to go from, you know, people have asked, and that's exactly what I've told them as well. Yeah, and yeah, and I think it's been very fulfilling to know that I have been able to actually increase the number of like active users that I usually, serve.
Awesome. Um, did your so you talked about how there were like three options for your job, right? It was like engineering, wait, I
Hmm.
guess engineering,
Engineering,
doctor, or
doctor. Mhm.
oh, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's either doctor, lawyer, engineer.
Okay,
If you
yes,
know,
yes,
you
yes.
know. Those are the
Yeah.
big three.
So I imagine that was like a big conversation that you had to have with your family when you were deciding to not go to med school. How did you navigate that conversation and like what was your strategy for it? Because you'd had some amazing work experiences already, so I imagine that would have helped.
Yeah. Okay, what an interesting twist to this conversation. But yeah, that is a big thing. That is a big, you know, for any parent, I am certain that, all right, look at the optics here. It's like, yes, I have a seat in medical school, but right now, I'm currently working for a design studio slash startup in the Bay Area, along with X number of other startups, right? At that early, and I was there like probably when I was in my early 20s, not even like late 20s or whatever. So it was a tough like pill to swallow, I will say, for them, especially because what my role was at that time was an instructional designer, which sorry, like that's not one of the big three. What is that even, you know? And I remember a lot of like they'd be like, you're an industrial designer? Like what are like, so it's like it was you design industry, like so it was tough to have that conversation. I think one of the things that really helped was kind of just explaining the work that I was doing, and the reason why, and why something like a career in medicine didn't really make sense for me as much. I think having those conversations were super important. There definitely was a lot of shock. There's a lot of like cultural sort of like things that you're kind of breaking down and stuff like that. But no, I think they also aligned with the idea that the way that I see my skill set in terms of trying to be creative, trying to get things organized, trying to make things happen really aligned well with this. Whereas it may not be as well suited for, I don't know, or may not be as like well suited for something in like medicine or something like that. So definitely a lot of conversations there, but it was not easy and it did take time. So it was not like, oh, we had a conversation and that was over. It was like years. So like it took time. Yeah.
That makes sense. I imagine a good amount of students in our community are also sort of feeling that way. Like they might be pre-med, but maybe their heart is somewhere else, and it's hard to have that conversation sometimes. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course.
So you are now in product management.
Mhm.
Maybe like as a funny question, like does your family know what a product manager is? And how do you explain that to them? And then how did you know that product management was the right career path for you?
Yeah. Um, so do they know about what a product manager is now? I mean, honestly, even when you answer that question, even on like other forums, like your health insurance asks like, "What's your job title?" Like, I'm even wondering if they even know. A lot of times people get confused with like project management, um, But after many a tutorial, I believe my parents do know. I may have to pop quiz them later this month to find out. But how did I know product management was right for me? I mean, it wasn't one of those things where like I was in college and I was like, you know what? Forget medicine. I'm going to be a product manager. It was something that I kind of discovered while on the job. And I feel like it clicked with me because working in ed tech companies, when I was at my first company in the Bay Area at that design studio, when I joined, I was the only one with an ed background. Like no one else, ironic, crazy, right? Like
Oh,
no one, when I showed like, this is what a lesson plan is, they were like, ah, lesson plan, like this is like how you design like a learning experience in that way. And that was crazy to me. In fact, I remember one person was like, um, I don't believe in like educational science. Like, I don't think that's even a thing. And I was like,
wow.
I have a master's degree in like education. Like, what are you talking about? So, okay. So that kind of told me a little bit about the fact that the people who are making these products, the people who are on the tech side of things, if they don't appreciate like pedagogy, and if they don't really have that background, then how are they making these nuanced decisions about what teachers need and what will be valuable and helpful for teachers? And then I think back to my own teaching experiences, a lot of the tools that I used, I was like, are you kidding me? How is another teacher gonna like, those clickers that I don't know if they still have them in colleges, but they used to have them and you choose like as an audience member. They
Yeah.
had one for high school, and I'm telling you, that thing was not only like prohibitively expensive, but also so difficult to use.
Mm.
Then later on, after I finished teaching, I remember there was a company that came up with like just like a sheet of paper that you can put up, and if you put it like this, it's A. If you put it like this, it's B. If you put it like this, it's C. I forgot what it was called, but it's like so much easier. The setup was like flawless, and I was just like, how these things are designed makes a big difference in terms of how they're used. And if you
Mhm.
haven't had that experience in the class, then it's going to be very difficult to do. So those two ideas together, my first experience working in ed tech as an instructional designer, my experiences as a teacher, like putting those together, I was like, I really want to work on more product like related things to have more of an influence on that experience for teachers. And I've always loved working on complex work, and that big project that I did with NASA and the Gates Foundation, it was like, I don't know. I felt like I thrived in those situations where there was a lot of ambiguity. And then
Mhm.
that's a big thing for people who may be in college, where usually it's like study chapter, no chapter, respond to test questions, done, or write essay. But there's very little room for ambiguity. And I think, yeah, I really enjoyed the ambiguity and making sense out of that chaos. And that's why I felt like PM was like a really good mix of creativity, leadership, systems thinking, and making impact.
Yeah. I think you're great at it too. Just awesome. Yeah. From our last conversation with Matt Bellotti from AngelList, he said basically a similar thesis to you. He said the best product managers know the users better than anyone else. Like genuinely know what it's like to be in their situation and use the tools that you're building for them. So it's like incredible that no one else at the company that you worked for was from education, but they're creating educational tools. So yeah, glad to have you. All right, let's talk about the pivot. I get, was it really a pivot from instructional design to product management, or was it just like a natural transition where you were just added, you're given some more product management responsibilities?
Yeah. Um, I think, yeah, it definitely was. It started off as like getting these product management responsibilities, and then until you have to kind of be like, okay, wait a minute, this is not even my role anymore. Like like I'm doing something totally different. So when I was doing the first project for the mission to Mars, um, that one was like they didn't even anticipate the work that was required and all the product work that would be going into it. Like I was literally writing user stories, passing it off to a team, an engineering team in like Romania, doing back and forths with them, stuff like that. And so I was like, huh, it doesn't really feel like instructional design. And then, and I found that it's not. And then by the time they needed their second product, the chemistry one, they were like, okay, this is yours. Um, you know, there was also like 90% less budget, and they were like, who can we get this to? And so then they're like, boop, found it. And that one, it was like, okay, that I was given that one. And then later on, in like other places like at Phil U, for example, that's one where I worked together with a bunch of other folks, and I think you were all there as well, Kathy. And it's like, hey, this is something I'm interested in exploring. Can I like take this on and stuff? So sometimes it's so as you can see in that, right? Sometimes you end up doing it. Sometimes the work is provided and there's an opportunity to do it. And then sometimes you advocate to try to get into it. These are all like indirect ways, right? Like of getting into product management. Whereas like typically it's like apply for role, get role, you know? So for those that only see it in that other way, apply to role, get role, like just know that there's like many other avenues into it as well.
Yeah. And it's up to you to create those opportunities too, right? Ask for them, take them on, do them voluntarily, practice it, see if you like it, and if you do, then ask for more formally.
That's right. That's right.
Well, I was gonna ask about how you prepared for the pivot, but maybe I feel like you talked a good amount about that, so I won't continue in that line. How do you decide what company to work for?
Yeah. For me, it's very much about the mission. Well, because I personally have that very strong mission of like, providing high quality educational experiences for everyone. That's been really helpful in terms of deciding and figuring out what company to work for. Um, it it's like being vegetarian, right? It's like when you're if you're a vegetarian, it's like you only have like a certain like set of options in your from the menu that you look at. So it's definitely a lens that I use to evaluate, what company to work for. But I remember it came up before, actually, before I joined PhilU, I had gotten an offer to work for Lyft. And I remember the work was to teach the drivers how to have good conversations with the passengers. And I was like, interesting. I don't really know how mission critical this is for like my particular mission, even though I think Lyft is like trying to do some other good stuff. Shout out to Lyft, I guess. But yeah, so I was like, no to that. And I didn't join Lyft. And that's actually when I joined PhilU or Philanthropy University, which was a shock to many because they're like, you wouldn't join a very large, pre established company, we'll say, and join a startup nonprofit, over here. But yeah, I mean, honestly, looking back, I feel really good about that. And obviously met amazing people along the way that I may not have met otherwise. So um, I think that's important. And also just really asking yourself, I remember a mentor, actually our former CEO at PhilU, when making some of these choices was um, would you fight for this product? Like, do you feel really strongly about this product? Because if you're a product manager, you're basically like the CEO of that feature, of that product, etc. So um, you should feel like I am passionate about this. I know about the end user. I understand the problem, and I feel like this thing, like it excites me. And I think that's important as well. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
makes
that's
sense.
important.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had a clear thesis on what impact you want to have since college or since you made that the conscientious choice from following the medical track into, deciding where you want to be now. So it's great.
Yeah.
So I guess in essence, you've had a pretty awesome and winding career. What do you wish you knew in your teens and 20s to set you up for success?
Yeah, this is a good question. Um, the thing that I wish I knew, I think I had mentioned this a little bit before, but not everything is so 1 plus 1. It's like when you're in high school, And if you're a pre-med student, you know that like your goal is to be a gunner. Like and be like, I have to get I have to get the highest score possible in my grades, in my MCAT and all of that. And it's kind of like in order to do that, you have to do very like 1+1 kind of things. Study the text, answer the questions, and be successful. But if I was looking back, given the product work that I do now, I would tell my 20-year-old self to build more, to do more ambiguous things. Like do things that involve a lot more ambiguity. Like build more, don't wait for things to be like perfect. Take on a challenge. Like try to solve a problem. Um, like you don't need to have a job. Like I was talking to my cousin last month. Like you don't need to be in the role to actually build stuff and do stuff. Like now with all the AI tools that we have available to us and all these other tools and things, you can make something that solves problems. So I would tell, you know, um, my younger self or my, self in my 20s, like really try to push yourself to do something where you're not really sure what the answer is yet and be comfortable with that ambiguity. Build stuff, break stuff, learn. Um, School does not do a good job in teaching us to fail forward because when you fail, you failed. It's like there's no failing forward. It's just you just fail. So, but put yourself in opportunities where you can like fail, make mistakes, learn, grow, and help people along the way.
Yeah. Yeah, we definitely agree. We have this one of our mantras is that you don't need permission to build something great. So you don't need permission to get an internship or build something or do a hackathon, build a project, just do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to someone for dinner on this past Friday, and he's like a videographer, and he's like, "Yeah, I just made a commercial for a company that I really liked, and then I sent it to them and said if they want to use it. Then they used it. Then they hired him after. This is like,
Oh,
it's you don't have to wait exactly. It's like you said, you know, do it, put it out there, solve the problem. People love people who can like. You don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You have to be the person that's able to solve these problems.
very true. Speaking of solving problems, are there any either like cringy, funny stories, such or like situations and learnings that you feel comfortable sharing um, as you are learning how to be your best professional self?
Cringy, funny stories. I don't know.
You're so professional too. I mean, for folks that like don't know you, like we're always so put together and so professional and delightful. So I'm like, I don't know if you've ever done anything cringy.
I mean, I've done like as a high school teacher, I was the most cringe like anyone could be. Like I remember once I tried to be cool, like I tried to be like the brown Bill Nye the Science Guy, and I was like, you guys, if like I remember I had this demonstration where I had this like dollar bill, and I, like I dipped it in alcohol, and I was like, when you don't pay attention in class, it's like you're burning money, and then I like light the dollar bill. It's covered in alcohol on fire, and then it's supposed to like be untouched or whatever. And then it turns out that I actually like put way too much alcohol on it, and then the inflamed alcohol then dripped onto my pants, and then my pants were on fire. And then I remember Shatavia, this girl in the first row, was like, "Oh, Mr. Siddiqui, your pants are on fire." I was like, "Yeah, right." And then I looked down, and it literally was. And then I had to like pat, pat, pat. Told all the students like, "Do not look at me. The quiz starts now. Start your quiz." Then I ran to the back, put duct tape all over like one leg, and then walked around school the entire day like that. Were there a lot of transferable learnings from this anecdote that I just shared? Probably not, but things happen. I remember, yeah. So, embarrassing moments happen, but even later on, like when I was doing critical chemistry, I remember they gave me two or three instructional designers, and one of them did not even know like the basics of chemistry, and they were supposed to write the course, and this is before AI, so it's like if you don't know it you have to learn it, like, and then they had to learn it in such a way that they are writing instructional content on electron configuration, and that's not easy. So I remember, and this was like in startup scrappy days where I remember literally going to their house and being like, okay, let me explain electron configuration so you can write this lesson on it, you know? But that was really wild. But other cringy things that have happened are a lot of people playing music. I remember one coworker, um, yeah, just wrote a song about all the other coworkers, and then once our CEO promoted someone in song, um, and so yeah, but a lot of crazy stuff, a lot of crazy stuff.
That
Professionally,
is
what I've learned is be yourself, but just be prepared. And
I know, yeah.
also,
This whole concept of like bring your whole self to work. It's like, to what extent do we bring
what?
our whole selves to work?
Yes, PSA, bring yourself bring your whole self to work as much as it is appropriate for the workplace.
Yes.
Okay, y'all? Yeah, yes, keep that in
Yeah.
mind.
Maybe spend the first like month or so gauging the spectrum of bringing oneself to work before you bring your whole self to work.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and getting a sense of the culture is important too. I remember when I first came to my first role in the Bay Area, I came in like dress shirt, slacks. I can't remember how I was wearing a tie, but I'll tell you one thing, there wasn't a single person there that wasn't wearing jeans and a hoodie. Like that was a cultural moment, and that was quite cringy, I guess. Made bad
You
tea.
still always do look nicer than most people, I think, in the office, which is great.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Banana Republic for that. Use promo code Siddiqui. Just kidding. Okay.
Nice. All right, we're sort of getting to time, so maybe I'll ask what's one more that's good. Well, lots of questions about AI. So I think as a community, we've generally been thinking about AI, how it's affecting especially early careers and how it's affecting companies within. Do you have any sort of like insight thoughts on how you think AI might affect roles in PM or your role or Adobe or your industry as a whole?
Yeah. Um, yeah, there's a lot of talk around AI. I can't remember who said it, but it's like AI is not going to take your job. The person who knows how to use AI will. But it's just like, okay, guys, I think it's here. Okay, so it's here. I would think I was just in a meeting where someone was like, remember how we were all thinking about AI? Is it going to be big? Is it not? It's here now. Like, period, full stop. That's what they said. So I would say is prepare yourself to be able to leverage all the good that it has. Just in my own experience, I was at a moment a couple of months ago, no designer. Great idea, no designer to bring it to life. There's this AI tool, no sponsorship, like Bolt AI or something. I don't know, Kathy, if you've heard about this one, where it's like,
Yep.
yeah, from prompt, it can like now make a prototype. And I literally did make a prototype from my like understanding of this idea and then gave it to people like teachers to use that prototype. And so it's like these tools are out here, you guys, you know, so make sure that you're using them, you know, for really being a lot faster, more agile, more informed, etc. So, and also like if you have to like, you know, now we have playgrounds and stuff like that that are your company may provide you, and you can kind of summarize your notes and stuff like that. So it saves a lot of time. Of course, everyone is worried about like what roles and what tools they replace. But I think the mindset to have is really like, what's next? How do you leverage it in the tools and the problems you're trying to solve? Sometimes I feel like I need to take a whole week off and just like get more up to date on like all the new tools that have just come out in the last month, you know, and see where all that VC money is going, in terms of like what are people funding and why are they funding that, etc.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, this is extremely well timed. I did not plan this, but basically, we were launching an LMS with a bunch of our AI partners who are helping to teach students how to use all of their AI tools. So we do have a tutorial on how to use Bolt, which is great. We have some tutorials on OpenAI and all of their different tools. So Ali, if you want to use it, you can use it too. It's free.
Okay. Solid. When I get that week off, I'm gonna be coming for that platform.
Great. Awesome. So I think we can end it here. This was incredible. Thank you so much, Ali, for being generous with your time and wisdom and being so entertaining and funny, as you always are. To everyone here, thank you so much for tuning in. If you happen to participate in the challenge project with Canva, we are actually going to announce winners on Monday, so that's really exciting. And we're going to be hosting an open challenge with OpenAI soon, so look out for that. Otherwise, see you next week, and thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you all so much.